So he had to go to Hyderabad all of a sudden. So there was no option out here.
But it's not serious.
Mom is unwell, I guess. That's.
So, sir,
Let's start.
Sir, should we start? Prashant sir?
Yeah, sure.
Great. So first of all, I welcome all of you on behalf of IIA. My name is Shruti and I'm from PRM 39. Today we are going to have a talk by Mr. Prasanth Prabhakaran. He's from PRM 13 and he's co-founder of health startup Watch Your Health. The topic is building a startup from scratch. This session will be moderated by Mr. Upesh Mathur. He's also from PRM 13. So without further ado, let's start this session. I request all the attendees to please mute except Honorable Moderator. Also, I would like to share that this session is getting recorded. So over to you, Upesh sir.
Thank you, Shruti. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me immense pleasure and pride to introduce Prasanth, who is a dear friend, a batchmate, and a fellow B-blogger. A professional who has built 3 large D2C businesses, grounds up, in a career spanning 3 decades. Besides the PGDRM from the PRM 92-94 batch, he is a graduate of physics from Ferguson College, Pune. He has over 2 decades of experience with in the BFSI space. Prior to joining Yes Securities India, where he was the MD and the CEO, he was associated with India Infoline as an executive director and the president retail broking for almost 7 years. Prior to that, he was also associated with Kotak Securities, HDFC Bank, Kotak Mahindra, and Winkies India Group. Since 2022, he has been an avid investor and advisor in the startup fraternity. He also runs a health tech startup, which is now an 8th year of running. So introducing Prasanth Prabhakaran, a visionary leader and a co-founder of WatchYourHealth.com, with an impeccable blend of strategic expertise, passion of promoting healthier lifestyle. Prasanth serves as the head of strategy, driving the company towards its mission of empowering individuals to take charge of their well-being. With his unwavering dedication and profound insights, Prasanth is reshaping the landscape of health and wellness, making a lasting impact on people's lives. As of today's topic, building a startup from scratch, who else could be a better person to speak about building startups? Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Prasanth Prabhakaran.
Thank you, Upesh. इतना प्यार तूने पहले दिया रहता तो लाइफ में I would have been way ahead in life, यार.
Yes.
Please.
Okay. So I will begin with some of the questions that we all thought that would be intense for you to also address at the same time. So great. Prasanth, you belong to the same batch, but I look a century older than you, and you have not aged a day since we left the batch. Okay. Prasanth, you have been you had a successful corporate career for close to 3 decades now. From a sales head of Winkies in 1996, you rose to become a MD and the CEO of Yes Securities in 2022. In short, you were a successful corporate honcho for over 2 decades. The best of the perks and salaries and incentives and ESOPs and God. And of age hovering around 50. What made you pull yourself together, put your shoulder on the grind to initiate a startup? And moreover, didn't your family or kids ever cross you in this journey? How important were their roles? How can entrepreneurs balance their personal and professional lives while starting and running a business?
Yeah. The answer is very simple, Upesh. It came about from the fact that when you have been with 3 organizations for nearly 2.5 decades and you have built businesses from zero, and you suddenly realize that why can't you do it for yourself? That was the objective we started off. adulation, the kicks that come with corporate career are a different high. But doing something, building up from ground zero, and then ending up reaching a scale with an objective of ending up ensuring that there's a social cause attached to it. All this came into being when I finally decided that it's time to move ahead, do it on our own. We have been advising and building brands for others. This is one portion of it. But the more interesting portion of it is in my second portion of my career. A lot of interaction has happened with investment bankers. It has happened with a lot of VCs, private equity players. And that area has been so dominated by the IIT, IIMs. I said that it is time that an IRMAn also makes an impact into this space. So dream, we should end up doing well in every sphere that we end up getting in. So it translated into me making a move at the right time, I guess. I left at a high once Yes Bank had stabilized, and then ended up moving ahead.
I'm sure you will. Okay. So as an entrepreneur, what are the first steps that a founder should take before he or she starts a new venture? In other words, what is the right time to launch a
The right time to launch a startup is the day when you believe that you have reached that level of eccentricity that you have in your mind to end up making sure that you're willing to go through a grind which is extremely tough. So when we met for our Tisal Baad at IRMA, there was a statement that I had made which stands true even today, that unless you are really mad enough to do this journey, you shouldn't embark on it at all. Because this is a very lonely journey. I've interacted over the last 10 years plus with a lot of startup founders, both to raise funding, listening to ideas, be a sounding board to many of them. And a common strand that I find across the successful ones they are totally dedicated to the job that they have taken up. There's no half measure in their life when it comes down to the startup. If that is true, and that has to come about, that can come about only when you're solely focused on the goal that you have taken about. That remains the primary cause of success for an entrepreneur at any given point of time. You're running a lone journey at any given point of time. You have to take risks which are unprecedented. You have to understand functionalities of not just about business, but also all support functions to make sure that an organization is successful. You no longer have the backing of a large organization which has built processes which are standardized for you to come in. You can imagine the challenges that go along with it. You start alone with an idea. You believe the idea is big, but you imagine the challenges that go to make that idea big in the process of. So madness is something that I look at in promoters, and invariably the ones that are successful are the guys who 24/7 keep thinking about the organization and the endeavor to making it large in life.
You mentioned that you have been interacting with so many people in the startup space. So, and you have been an avid investor and advisor yourself. Honestly, tell us how many startups one has to really ground before you get into the one which is successful.
So let me talk from a funding point of view, because according to me, money is the primary cause of starting. As long as you know how to manage money, your organization can become successful or it can fail. So let's take the period of, say, 2015 till around 2022. In 2016 is when the government launched the startup scheme that they have from their side. And in 2016 is when around 470 odd startups had got started off at that point of time. In 2022, that rose to around 73,000, actually around 72,990 odd startups came about. So it's in the 70s. And now if you do not take the startups which are registered under Startup India, you're talking about a couple of lakh startups during the same period of time that has come about. Now in this, you have only 2,500 startups which have managed to raise seed funding, basically needed to survive and end up having a proof of concept which is successful at any given point of time. अभी एक 2,500 में in 2,500 you have only around 29% who have managed to raise the next level of funding. So you call it seed funding in the first case. The second one is a Series A funding, which is largely when an institutional investor comes to your cap table.
Yeah, that's
Now,
interesting. Sorry, go ahead.
now, yeah, I mean, this is still filtered down. By the time you come down to the 8D funding, you have B, C, D. This percentage keeps on changing. You have hardly less than 100 startups from 2015 till 22 who have managed to reach the C and D category. Actually, it is less than around 60 that is there in the actual numbers. So it's a tough grind. That is why I said that the founder of the entire institution is the one who has to be crazy enough, to be motivated enough, 24/7, 365 days a year, to end up making sure that the organization, because he is worried about how to pay the next salary, how to take care of the vendor, how to pay the electricity bill. It's not an easy journey for anybody that I know.
So, given those scary ratios, how can an entrepreneur secure funding for their business ventures, and what are some alternative options to the traditional bank loans?
So so funding goes in stages, right? So you have a pre-seed funding stage that is there. The pre-seed funding is usually when you want to raise money to end up taking a product from a thought into converting it into a product which can be marketed in the market. So you have a pre-seed funding, then you have a seed funding. Your product is out. You would like to market it into a closed user group. You want to take it to the next level. Now, these two stages, traditionally, you won't get an institutional investor coming in. You go to your friends and family. You go to angels, well-established players who look at investing into startups. They find your idea so compulsive that they want to put in money. And they'll also guide you during this portion now. Once these two stages are over and your product is accepted in a closed user group, it has ended up becoming acceptable. You are able to get traction. You have an idea which is able to convert itself into revenue. That is when your Series A funding comes into place, where institutional investors will look at 3 or 4 parameters that are there, which will make sure that you end up getting that round of funding. And these parameters are very important for any promoter to end up looking at, any founder to look at. It starts with himself, the attitude that they have. A Series A investor, an institutional investor, likes a founder who has some experience in running a firm up. Whether they have seen ups and downs, how they have reacted in the downs. So I'll give you a classical example. There's a very famous startup called WakeFit that operates from Bangalore that is there. WakeFit largely makes mattresses and sells it online. I know the founder pretty well, Chaitanya, that is there, and Ankit. Chaitanya is a failed entrepreneur for the first 5 startups that he had set up. Before he finally hit the jackpot after nearly 10 years of struggle to end up raising funding at that point of time. Your founder becomes essential to have gone through. That is the attitude that they look at. The second is how well has he built a core team around himself, the co-founding team that is there, who will take care of functionalities, because the founder cannot keep doing everything as the company organizes and becomes larger at any given point. So you have the co-founders, you want somebody who is able to do and supplement you in the areas that you are not good at. So if you're good in sales, you would like a finance guy or a technology guy to become your co-founder at any given point. VC very rarely likes a team which is single founder driven, because if anything happens with that founder, be it a disagreement, be it a change in strategy with the funding team doesn't agree, they would like to rely on others to end up running that institution at any given point. These two become important. Then the third is where they get the leverage, which is the money portion of it. if you are bootstrapped, if you are running it, how long will your money get you? How far will it get you? Because that is when they get the leverage to end up negotiating with you. If you are not revenue driven, then you're going to find it really tough to end up raising money at any given point of time. And last, I would say, is the idea, the product that is there. We call it the camp. You want me as a venture capital, as a private equity to join your camp. Camp means your co-founder, the attitude of the founder, the money, and last is the product, the quality of the thought idea that is there. It's an interesting thought which is there. I have seen it for 10 years that it doesn't change. VCs come with various ideas from investment. They have never run a business largely at any given point of time, or they get advisors who help them choose their ideas. So you have to be cognizant with this thought process at any given point.
So is a profitable balance sheet not really mandatory to raise capital from the funding agencies?
You've just taken me back around 20, 30 years back. I was working in Kotak at that point of time. And Kotak was a very small organization in your late 90s and early 2000s. And I wanted to start a new division in Kotak. This was for online investing when the entire world, 100% of the business that used to happen through a relationship manager vertical at any given. And Uday Kotak was taking the review, saying that that time I had asked for around 15 crores of capital to start off the online business, which at that time was a very large sum. 15 crores was not small in early 2000s that was there. And he ended up giving me 3 years. He told Gujarati philosophy hai, and it is an interesting philosophy to have, saying that if 3 years, if you're not able to make money from the division, then we'll close down this division. It's called 1,000 days in Gujarati. 1000 दिन तक धंधा चलाया और profitable नहीं बना, तो फिर बंद कर. And that stayed with me. It is the early days of my career. It was the first 8, 10 years of my career. And it has stayed with me all my life. And today, it is proven right. You have had institutions which have come and gone. There are institutions which are burning capital left, right, and center. But basics of business do not change. When a profitable entity will end up raising money in tougher times and into a more bullish market, you will have all kinds of entities which will raise money.
True, so true. Moving on, so what are some of the important considerations for scaling and growing a business after the initial launch?
So the way I end up looking at it is that as long as you have got the first 2 or 3 points right, which is getting your core team right, because important is that you should have a sounding board, which is a major failure point that I saw in a lot of startups that is there. See, the conviction of a founder takes the organization ahead. But when a founder doesn't realize that he or she is going wrong in the way the institution is growing or is progressing in a direction, then there should be enough sounding boards, be it internal or be it an advisory board that we call it, or seniors that you have worked with at any given point of time who will give you an unbiased view on how the institution goes about. If you get these 2 or 3 portions right, then you will fall into the 60 odd, which will take the pie at the end of the 60, because I'm assuming that the idea that you have thought about is based on the experiences that you have had in either in your personal life or in your professional career to start the startup that you have thought about. If that idea is good enough, it will scale up, because scale is required to end up bringing a real impact into the market that you're talking about. These founders that we have talked about are the guys who would like to change the way human behavior is, consumer behavior is, and wants to end up bringing a big impact into the market. Not all are this way. There are others who will just make processes better so that life becomes easier for individuals. So if you have got the right idea, you have got sounding boards. In the same process that I talked to you about Uday also told that the first 18 months are there for you to test your idea, build your idea, change your idea in case it is failing. Because the last period of the 3 years that is there, you should be there to end up ensuring that you have a successful idea which you're scaling it up. So 18 mahina hai actually to experiment with an idea, experiment with the team that you're working with, whether they are the right individuals, going back to and creating a solid sounding board, because you'll go wrong. As I said, the ratios are not in favor of successful entrepreneurs, right? Most of them are because they do not take feedback very positively and are willing to change. And I have enough examples of this sort. Actually, a brilliant example that I can give you is the present startup that I'm working with. It's a boy that was a management trainee under me in 2000 in Kotak. He wanted to start a startup in 2015 and he approached me for funding. And I knew his track record. He started off the business of health, because he said that we have operated in 1% of India till now, and there is an enormous issue of increase of diabetes, lifestyle diseases, and I want to enter into that space and take care of primary health of individuals in the markets that are possible. I'll end up having a mechanism, a digital intervention, which will end up changing the way person functions. So it was a right problem identified. He built the proposal, but what he realized is that Indians, the cost of acquisition of a client was at around 5,000 rupees. But he couldn't charge an Indian more than 1,000 rupees in a year, because they are not willing to pay for their health unless it becomes a problem. He continued the same thing for 2 years. The 18, he came from Kotak, thought so it was inbuilt into him to change. And he realized in 2018 that I'll continue burning capital unless I end up changing my strategy. And he changed his strategy to say that I'll go to an insurance company, because if the portfolio of an insurance company is healthy, they'll pay me money. They do not have claims. They have something called persistency in ratios of premium that makes a difference. And he changed. So you have to acknowledge the fact that not the initial idea, but something that gets evolved in the process will change. And this requires a very mature business head, a mature entrepreneur to take that decision. So maturity is important. Sounding boards are important. And U-turns in your business are important at any given. All this happens. I'm assuring you a successful business will always raise money.
So broadly, what you're saying is perhaps any solid business plan or an effective strategy needs to be worked and reworked and it keeps on happening till you get succeed. So there is no one fixed solution to become a successful one.
नहीं, मैंने ये नहीं बोला रुपेश, मैंने बोला कि 18 महीने है, you have 18 months to experiment and make it right. The last 18 months of the 3 years are when you have to make it successful. You have to scale up and meet the budget. The first 18 months budgets that you have given, working with yourselves, the milestones that you have kept for yourself, you have ended up saying you're going to add 10,000 clients. You have added 1,000. So you are still on the right track. You have to change tracks on how you want to acquire these clients. So the way that the business has to be broken down has to be thought like a business guy. The business guy says that 3 years it has to be profitable. 18 months I'll experiment and change. If it doesn't work, then I'll have to change my strategy to make the business work. That is all that I am saying. I'm not saying that a business plan is not required. It is required, but get the product right. Unlike when you're joining, and let's assume that you have gone and joined Kotak Mahindra Bank. You know that you have to open savings account because that is a process laid down, right? But when you're starting a new organization, you don't know the product that you're launching, whether there's a clientele base for it, and what is required for him to, or her to end up accepting you as a startup. Unknown brand, will they trust you with money? I have no idea. If you're giving money, it is easier. But whether you have a capability to recover that money as an NBFC, as a microfinance company, all are issues that are prevalent in the market. And that can come only with the experience that you learn in a organized play, and then you move over into building your vision that you have in your mind.
Okay, Prasanth, which are the most common failure points that you have seen while building a startup, and what does one, how does one overcome these and keeps himself or herself motivated?
The biggest hurdle that I have always found, which is also the biggest strength for an organization, is the founder. If he or she is not flexible in the thought and acceptable to the fact that I had laid these milestones and I have not managed to meet them, and I need to do something different, invariably the organization will run out of money. I also told that any organization's biggest problem is the way the founder manages the limited resources that they have when they are building up the company. Let's assume that you have done the pre-seed funding and seed funding and you have raised a couple of crores to end up making it. Invariably, this money runs down in the first 18 months itself before you end up even getting a successful product launched. So you might have found a secret recipe at the end of the 18th month or the 20th month, but paisa hai nahi to end up scaling it up to the next level now.
Right.
So those 2 years is when you need advice which is solid, when you need to reach out, meet people with experience in the field that you are in, take advice, and end up going ahead with it. And it also requires a very mature leader to say that my organization is more important than me when I'm building up when I'm wanting to scale up the organization. So giving the classical example of the boy that I spoke about, whom the health venture that is running right now, the MD and CEO listening to the advice of the entire advisory board and the board, has stepped down from the CEO position and moved into a founder's role function and is appointing a professional CEO because he says that I've scaled this business up to 15 crores of business, but the vision to take it to 100, you need somebody a lot more mature to run it. I will want to assist him or her as a founder to make sure that this organization becomes successful. That is maturity, that is listening to advice, and that is also accepting my weaknesses and strengths and understanding at any given point of time.
Very interesting. Prashant, are there any specific legal and regulatory considerations that an entrepreneur should be aware of when he's just starting a business?
100%. As I said, uh, your founder is a Superman. So he has to wear the hat of a Superman at any given point of time. Because not just does he have to understand the business that he is into, but he has to keep track of everything that is happening in the regulatory framework at any given point of time. A simple example, wealth management business, where distribution of mutual funds through the online route used to be a large business idea in the mid 2015 to 17. In 2017 to 20, regulation changes were brought about by the regulators consistently, where instead of making money upfront, they made it a trail business. That means that if you have sold, let's assume, a crore of mutual fund to a client, and you earlier used to make 3.5% of income upfront, which is 3.5 lakh rupees in a crore of mutual funds sold in an equity mutual fund. The regulator said that you cannot pay this upfront, you have to pay it in trail, and it will be paid as trail over the period of time that the client is with you. So the trail became at around 0.7% from a 3.5%. So the business plan that you have started up saying that I will end up acquiring clients for mutual fund distribution business online suddenly had to change. Today, these wealth management startups, except the ones which have scaled up to some scale, there are not many takers to fund these ideas of making online transactions and getting clients. Regulator made another change saying that direct mutual fund applications will be accepted. Similar changes are happening. So if you're not aware, in the pharma industry, there was a major change that happened which said that the pharma companies did a lot of things for the doctor community, including taking care of expenses, but it was treated as under the table expenses that was there by the regulator. Regulator put a stop to it. Suddenly, a lot of startups which had run with that model out closed down because there was no money there because regulator had become strict. So unless you are keeping track of everything that is happening and you're well aware of the regulatory risks of the business that you have got into, the institution is doomed for failure. Regulatory risk is one of the major points that a financial investor will look at when he or she wants to put money into your institution.
Interesting, very interesting. So, as a proud IRMAn yourself, what are your expectations from the IRMA fraternity? You feel that it is time to feed and nurture a culture of entrepreneurial brotherhood amongst us?
You have spoken about a topic which is extremely close to my heart. Why only IIT IIMs here? I have seen IRMANs to be among the most hardworking lot among the entire bunch that I worked with for the last 30 years. They are willing to put their heart and soul out. You tell them to work for any period of time to get a project live, they are available at any given. So we are not lesser than anything. The only thing that is missing is the help that the IIT IIM community gives to entrepreneurs when they start off, when they are from their alumni association that is there. And that is clearly missing from the IRMAN community out. Today, if I have an idea with nearly 5,000 IRMANs out in the street, shouldn't we be going to have a culture of first the advisory committee that I've spoken about, especially in the segment that we are functional in? We should have been able to provide that support out. There are enough IRMANs sitting in senior locations who should be able to allow experimentation of these ideas with a closed user group. There are a lot of things, helping them raise money, getting them connected out. It's a community which might also supports a entrepreneurial committee from outside, which will end up helping these startups to nurture and become larger. So IRMA should specifically end up looking at creating a pool of experts in various domains that we are functional in, and we are present across the spectra. I know of individuals right from pharma to finance to banking to agri to what to software. Every portion of business where IRMAN should be used as sounding boards to end up helping scale up the business for IRMAN entrepreneurs that is there. Once this is done, the same seniors will end up opening the doors for the entrepreneurs that are there into the entire community to end up taking it to the next level, which is reaching out to startups. We have quality IRMANs who have founded out institutions and have built it up. We have Vivriti Capital, you have an IRMAN sitting there. You have Ragini sitting in Caspian who is into venture debt that is there to a large extent. You have enough people that I can think of. And you have experts in every segment, be it social entrepreneurship or be it profit-making entrepreneurships, businesses, be it microfinance, be it any agri startup that you can think of, be it FMCG, we have the expertise to do it. But have we made it a concentrated effort to inculcate it into our patches that we should also become entrepreneurs, and by becoming entrepreneurs, you can still help the cause that IRMA has started for? I don't think so. We need to end up getting it imbibed into the curriculum that is there and allowing IRMANs to think diagonally and tangentially to make it large. We don't think large enough. You speak to a opposite institute that is there where we see entrepreneurs mushrooming. They do not talk small. They always think large. They think global. We still have to go there at any given point of time. And I would love cracking the domain that is there with the same entrepreneurial community that I talk about from IRMANs. And that's a dream that is there from our side here.
Lovely. So I would now like to open the session for Q&A. There are a lot of IRMANs I see. You have some questions specifically to this subject. Please go ahead and either pick it out or type it in the chat box.
Yeah, Upesh, may I request you to take a few minutes to share my personal experience, which is very relevant to the subject. If it is okay with you, then I'll.
Can we finish the Q&A and the last 5 minutes we can do that, if that's okay to you?
Yeah, whatever. It's not a question, but it is. I thought it will relate. It relates well to the whatever Prasanth has talked about.
Okay, please go ahead, sir. It's okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. Nothing teaches you more than failure. And as Prasanth has said, I'll take you back to my entrepreneur startup journey. We started in 2000. In 2000, and luckily that time, I used to meet Prasanth also often, because I had worked for 3 years in a logistics company and decided that that's not my cup of cake and leave it. This was the year 2000 when 2 army officers, myself and one more person, we registered a private limited company called sapnabazar.com. Now, in this company, we were encouraged actively by a computer scientist from Pune, Mr. Bhatkar, and but we contacted him later on. Now, when we started this company in 2000, as Prashant said, we realized not even 18 months we had to wait. We were in 12 months, we realized that we don't have the sustaining power which is required, because what the company was that we were trying to do exactly what today Amazon and the alike are doing. We were taking orders, had software developed, we were taking orders online from customers and managing delivery with my logistics knowledge. Now, we continued for about a year, but then realized that we neither had the funds to continue, and also realized that we were ahead of time. There wasn't enough laptop or computer penetration at homes and the knowledge required, where the ladies or the people could place orders online. Then there were many other related issues. So as that Gujarati saying goes, I believed in that. And the same way, without waiting for even 18 months, we closed down the company within 12 months. And after that, as the things have unfolded now, even today, some of the conceptual things which we had in mind in our concept that time have been started or in some form or the other by companies like Amazon after more than 15-20 years. So it is not just the idea or the concept that is this thing. The timing also has to be, because basically the need was there, but resources were not there. Technology was not developed. The penetration of computers was not there. People were not
the
ready
entire
to
wherewithal
trust.
was not there, and that was the reason perhaps you could not take it.
And people were not willing to trust a product online. While placing order, they were not
Yeah.
sure.
So can we?
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead. Is it John?
I got
So
a
I
quick
thought-
question. Quick question for Prashant. Prashant, how many startups did you think before you really decided to put all the bets on this? Right? How many companies did you think?
So in the period from 2013 till around 2016, when I did majority of my investments, practically around 15 odd firms and 6 very concentrated investments, I would have sat with at least practically an investor a day, John, nearly around 400, 500 before I shortlisted the 15 that I ended up putting in. It's not easy. It is not easy to end up, because getting ideas are brilliant invariably. So we have red flags that we end up looking at. We have red flags. Red flag is that the experience is not enough to end up bringing out the scale that the person is talking about. The second thing is that the core team that he or she has formed doesn't complement each other in making sure that the organization can reach the milestone that the person has talked about. The third thing is that, and this is all prior to the due diligence that is required on the financials. I'll
So
come to the
Prashant,
financials.
I'm not asking about the shortlisting part of it. How many did you actually bet on, or how many did you work in which these companies no longer exist, and
Oh,
this is the
lot
one
of them,
that.
lot of them. So the strike ratio has been nearly 50-50 that is there as far as I'm concerned, even after the due diligence that I do, as systematically that I go about it. There have been, but thankfully none of the large ones have failed. It is the smaller ones that have failed. And the numbers are totally different. As I said, among the 75,000 startups that are there, 73,000 startups that were registered, only 2,500 have raised money in 7 years, John. And the next level of funding that has come down to as low as 700 startups. So it's a very, very tough job to remain functional with an idea which is not scalable.
There is a question from Prasanth. How does VC see the past failures, especially for someone like the artist business person you mentioned?
Yeah. So the VCs like it in case you have seen a failure point out of. You have got to understand it also depends on the kind of VC that you're talking to. You speak to a Bangalore-based VC, you will see a lot of receptiveness for failure because that market is conducive to end up bringing out entrepreneurs from individuals out there. So when I talked about Chaitanya, I talked about the fact that he went. I know his journey for nearly around 10 years when every time he joined an institution, raised some money and started off again. So they love the fighting spirit that is there. And you need to have failure in your kitty to also become successful because you won't make the mistakes every time that you have ended up doing the last time that you have done. So VCs like it. If you have failed, you have fought back, you have come back. So don't worry about the fact that you have had a startup that has failed. I'm sure Joshi sir, if he starts off again, will end up becoming successful this time.
There is no more further question. I have one, perhaps you missed out when I asked you. Didn't your family or the kids ever cross you in this entire journey? I mean, were they always okay?
Upesh, I am a wrong example actually. You've got to understand that the financial stability that was required for me to take a call was already there. So this would actually fit in. So most, as I said, the challenges of an eccentric founder comes in there, where irrespective of whatever is there, he or she still goes ahead and ends up trying to build what they have dreamt of.
Perhaps
So
the
my example is a wrong example. I don't think so. I did have to take too much of time. My only thing that I had was that after sitting for nearly 15 years in various boards, I had to go and sit in front of investors asking for money. It's a different ballgame altogether.
yeah, you're on the other side of the table.
Yeah.
Yeah,
One question.
Prashant, nice of you to suggest taking up entrepreneurship again, but I am past 70 now, and
Yeah,
as
no
one
problem.
of the
Sir, we'll ask Manoj. Manoj is
Yeah,
just
I have
raising something.
just one question, because you talked about the being aware of the regulatory changes. Okay, but my guess is that even new entrepreneurs, for instance, are also concerned about even the normal regulatory compliances. So, is there some quick fix or some easy way of ensuring that somebody who's going to start a new venture can actually be assured about things like GST and other compliances?
Yeah, exactly. Manoj, GST comes in after you cross practically 10 crores of turnover. So your online GST filing has become mandatory beyond a particular turnover. Below that, when due diligence happens, they check all these tick marks, your compliance, your labor law compliance, making sure that whether you have PF. That is why I said the co-founder group has to help you to end up taking areas that you are not comfortable with.
No, one is co-founder
So,
group. My question was: is there something like a standardized,
no,
package
there
or
is
a
no.
or a,
No,
or a
there is.
software or something which is for small enterprises which
So,
can take care of
so there are a
anything?
lot of startups that have started off to make sure that you are regulatorily right, which takes care of startups getting supported both on virtual CFO, a virtual compliance head who keeps you under track as far as compliance is concerned.
Okay.
So there are startups that take care of it, and they end up doing the job. So there is an opportunity in everything. You're right to that extent, but there are people who have built up softwares of that sort of.
Thank you.
Sandeep has a question here. Prashant, how important is an idea and how important is the execution for success?
The answer I've given it, Sandy, in whatever language that I could. The first 18 months is when the idea has to be tweaked. It has to be adjusted. We use various sounding boards and then still go with your gut and do what you feel will make your brand larger. If in 18 months you do not get successful traction post the 18 months of building up that business, then there is something drastically wrong and you need to go back to somebody to take advice whether the product that you have launched is right or wrong. It is just that the product would be right. As I told, the present startup that I am working in, the boy was very clear that there is a scope of selling wellness products and reversing lifestyle diseases. 100% there is a product that is available out. There is a market for that. You are going to be the diabetes capital of the world. BP is going through the roof but people are just not willing to pay for their own health till they become unhealthy. That was the learning that the boy had in 18 months, and he realized that institutions are willing to make payment using the same platform that he had developed because of the simple fact that they are seeing value because of money saved by claims and by persistency increases for an insurance company. For hospitals, revisits increased because of the software that the boy ended up selling. So you have to keep working on the idea till it becomes successful. I'll take Vijay's.
Yeah, Vijay. Should I read it?
How does it work if company co-founders continue to stay on job? No. It's a no-go because of the simple fact that everybody tries doing this, putting their feet in both boats and trying to sail. It just doesn't work. Preferable is to end up going wholehearted into the entire job and you have an angel who is willing to support you financially, because financial stability is the only reason why you will be doing this. So it cannot happen. Your entrepreneurship is a whole-time job. It is not a part-time job. And VCs so definitely won't like it at all. I don't need to go at all.
So we can skip John's question. Why are you so serious, Parshu? Sanjay asks, are you working on something which falls under the social stock exchange?
Your regulator has gone berserk on the opposite side, Sanjay. SEBI has come hammer. There was a startup that I invested. I came to nearly investing into it. And 4 days before I was going to put money into the startup, SEBI came out with a circular exactly pointing out the lacuna that was there in that idea. And it was a risk that I had known when I was investing, but I felt that the idea was too large for it to fail. Social stock exchanges, unregistered advisors, trades happening outside the stock exchange are a big no-no for any regulator that is there. Your Bitcoins, classical example, stock trading with under various guises is a no-no at any given point.
Ajay sir has his hand. Ajay sir has his hand raised.
Yeah. Just one point I wanted to make, especially for the benefit of younger people, because I keep on getting offers from our younger IRMAns that I will moonlight for you for some assignments that I keep on group. It is acceptable if your employer permit it, but I just wanted to make a point that moonlighting as an option to become a co-founder is total no-no. That is not acceptable to the people, potential investor. So again, the same point that Prasanth said, co-founding is a full-time job. There cannot be a moonlighting there. So people who want to do that should keep that in mind. That's all.
Vijay asks,
yeah.
Also, are there any advisory group in alumni specific to, say, FMCG space?
This is exactly one of the requirements that I was saying, that it is for the alumni association to end up working with it, create for various segments. FMCG is what Vijay has raised, but I would say that creates various segments and end up building it up in such a fashion that any IRMAn who wants to become an entrepreneur would like to test the thesis that they have ended up building. It should be available at any given point.
John asks, how important is it to have a sounding board in this journey, and how do you identify one? Traits to look.
John, we have enough examples in front of us where entrepreneurs have stuck to their original thesis, irrespective of whether it was successful or not. Humility is required for an entrepreneur to say that I cannot be right every time. You still have to use your gut and go ahead with what is right for your business, but end up ensuring that you go back to people with experience in the market to say that whether what am I doing wrong and why is it not working and what is the change that I have to do, is exactly what advisory committees, advisory boards. When I put in money, I definitely look at the advisory board that is there. Because of the simple fact that, and I would also look at the various changes that a person has done in or her journey for the last 18, 20, 24 months, whenever they have reached out to us for funding.
Sanjay, how is the journey from sounding board to an actual board?
It's a tough journey because you are going to start alone, Sanjay. You have an idea, you have sounded it off. Let's assume that you have reached out to 5 in your batch and told them that this is what I want to do. Would you like to come along? They are the first guys, because they are your friends, they are your well-wishers. They'll end up telling it to you on the face whether it is going to work or not, or you're sitting on a pile of ideas which is not going to work out. I could have used more parliamentary language, but I'm trying to keep myself restrained. Once that sounding board thing is done, you've got to understand, to execute it, you need people. Let's assume it's a technology idea, or you want to start an NBFC, then the initial round of capital to be put in has to be raised. So that becomes the problem of the founder. Founder doesn't raise capital, then nobody is going to come and join. To get like-minded people with the same amount of motivation who are willing to work for their sustenance or work on their savings, it is an extremely tough task. But if you find somebody of that sort who is willing to do it, it's a brilliant partnership that will remain lifelong. Once that is done, you have got money raised, you have started building the prototype, you'll realize that what you thought it is like doing the interior of your house. The architect will always say that it is going to take 3 months to end up doing the house furnishing that is there before you move into the house. By the time it gets implemented, it's a 12-month job, 18-month job, depending on how much the architect wants to extend it. It is the same job out here. So you will learn to do. I still remember the second organization that I joined for a long time, IFL. The founder, Nirmal, actually learned coding because the coding team kept on giving him stories for life. He was a gold medalist CA, an IM topper, and he actually learned coding over 6 months to end up finding out what the coder is saying is right or wrong. So you've got to understand it's a long journey. It's part of the 18 months. If you do not get it in 18 months, then shut shop before and move over to your next idea.
Lovely. So, we don't
Prasanth,
see.
Yeah, Sandeep.
Prasanth, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of my observations is, while there are good ideas people start with and they get funding and all that, but after having an initial success up to a certain stage, good number of startups fail because of not having proper alignment between founders, not able to get the team alignment, and lack of clarity. Because as the venture starts taking shape and starts looking big, there are a lot of challenges between individual egos and founder egos, and what is in it for me. All those things start emanating. So what are your observations and what are your comments on that?
So for any organization or any venture capital or private equity firm putting in money, they always look at the core founder which is there. I told you that the attitude of the founder and the founding team is very important. They end up doing a full psychological study to end up understanding the dynamics between all 2, 3, 4, 5 co-founders that are there. But remember something, that among the co-founding team, there should be only one Gunda. एक ही गुंडा हो सकता है एक मोहल्ले में. अगर 5 गुंडे हो गए तो organization is bound for failure and the organization will go get doomed. So that one individual, the one founder who has got the core team together, should be strong enough to take the decisions, and the co-founding team should trust him or her to end up making sure that they're successful.
Great. Any more questions? So we are running out of time, Prasanth. Do you have some last words?
Last words, I think so. It's time that IRMA comes into the unicorn category. Let's end up trying to create an environment where entrepreneurs are groomed by at least the top 20 batches that are there in the institution, so that people take the leap of faith and go ahead and build it up. Our institution, our IRMA, has enough talent to end up making it big among institutions. There have been a few who have managed to start off well, but to still reach the scale that we are talking about, they need a lot of help, a lot of motivation to go to the next level.
Yeah, thank you very much for your time, Prasanth.
Thank you guys. Thanks
It was
for attending.
wonderful, insightful, and inspirational. I hope the audiences have some valuable takeaways. We hope and wish you do well in life. God bless. Thank you, all of you. You have been a wonderful audience. Have a great day. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Prasanth, sir.
Right.
And thank you so much, Upesh sir.
Thank
We'll be uploading the copy of this session on YouTube so that those people who could not attend the session can get the takeaways. And thank you so much, Prasanth sir, for giving us your valuable time and your learnings. I'm sure it will definitely help audiences. Upesh, Mathur sir, thank you so much for taking this session in a very positive way, for directing it in a perfect way. I thank audiences for their time. Thank you so much. Have a great
Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.
take
Great, guys. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.